Hey, Trailblazer here with a BattleTech video. Today I wanted to talk about tech instead of my usual rant about tactics. Specifically, I wanted to talk about light mechs in what we might call the modern period starting in 3050. And really, I'm talking about light mechs in the 3050s today. I hope this video could be kind of a companion potentially to Nerdy Overanalyzed's very nice video about light mechs in the 3025 era. Now famously, there are a lot more problems that arise for light mechs starting in 3050 than there have been previously. I still think light mechs are playable, but not all light mechs are created equal, and there are a lot of light mechs that now become unplayable starting in 3050.
Just to tell you what assumptions I'm bringing to the table, like Nerdy Overanalyzed, I think I'm going to focus on this from the perspective of what should a mercenary buy. But I'll be thinking a little more kind of what should a rich mercenary buy, rather than thinking about balancing for C-bills or availability or things like that. But I'm not going to be thinking about what are the best deals for your battle value. I'm not going to be thinking about what are some mechs that you can spam the battlefield with to use as initiative sinks. Those seem, to me those are odd priorities because they're just so unrealistic. I don't think a real-life commander would think, well, I'm going to put two of my valuable trained mech warriors in locusts and let them die so that I can get better initiative.
The light mech pilot now has to worry about pulse lasers, and worst of all, the clan large pulse laser. So when we think about the level of light mech hunting that was available in 3025, the bugbear of all light mechs, as Nerdy Overanalyzed points out in his video, is the Phoenix Hawk. And as he points out, the gold standard for a light mech in 3025 was you have to be able to survive a shot from a Phoenix Hawk's large laser. Now the big problem is, how do you survive a shot from a large pulse laser, and especially a clan large pulse laser, because those are extremely dangerous, probably the most dangerous weapon in the game to almost any mech, but especially light mechs, because they're very easy to hit with, especially given the skills of clan pilots. A clan large pulse laser with an elite or veteran clan pilot can hit even a light mech at 20 hexes. And even if the pilot's not that great, it can usually hit a light mech at 14 hexes, which is an extremely long range for light mechs. So the worst danger to light mechs in 3050 is something like this Cougar, which mounts two clan large pulse lasers. You can also create a similar variant for the Puma if you allow custom variants, and in my humble opinion, Omni-mechs were made to allow custom variants, and people who only use canon Omni variants is a very strange restriction to hold. But anyway, even in addition to the Cougar, think about what a Puma Prime with two clan ERPPCs that are connected to a targeting computer, think about what that mech can do to light mechs. It's not a -2 to hit, but it is a -1 to hit at very long ranges. So the Puma Prime can do 15 damage potentially. So the gold standard starting in 3050 has to be any crucial location, especially the legs, has to have at least 10 armor to survive a clan large pulse laser, and ideally 15 armor to survive that clan ERPPC from the Puma. This means very sadly that you can take all of those 20-ton mechs and shove them into the dustbin of history, because it's impossible for them to have more than 8 points of armor on their legs. So they're going to die to a clan large pulse laser very easily. Any hit from a clan large pulse laser on those legs is going to go internal and start slowing down that light mech in a very dangerous way, potentially. And the only light mechs that can mount enough armor to protect their legs against a clan ERPPC are 35-ton mechs. So in general, my outlook on light mechs starting in 3050 is 35-ton mechs with maximum armor are the only ones that I would feel very safe taking to the battlefield. And nothing under 30 tons is playable, with one exception. The exception is the Mongoose, which is extremely optimized for a 25-ton mech. It has full armor, it's got a great arsenal with lots of medium lasers. this is a mech that can still do some damage on the contemporary battlefield. It's not perfect. It is still too fragile to stand for very long against clan pulse lasers, but it is at least guaranteed to stand for one turn against a hit from a clan large pulse laser, and that makes a huge difference. So the Mongoose is still playable, even if it's not ideal. On the other hand, every other 25-ton mech from the 3050s period, is basically useless.
You look at something like a Dart or a Tarantula, or, man, especially a Commando, these mechs are not going to stand up any length of time against any amount of fire from pulse lasers. Now, I've said that to me the key to a usable, excellent light mech is 35 tons with full armor. So as you might expect, I'm a big fan of the Wolfhound. The arsenal is also excellent. It's very resilient for its mass. It has a standard engine, which makes it even more of what we call a zombie, or a mech that will stand up for a long time against enemy fire. Of course, it's also kind of slow for a mech of its period. That's a disadvantage, and a lot of the time what you want from a light mech is something that's going to go really fast, because if you're going to go 6 and 9, you know, a lot of the time, except for issues of budget, why aren't you bringing a Phoenix Hawk? An attitude that I have in many games is, if you're going to go as slow as 6-9, why not slow down a little further to 5-8 and take the Hollander BZK G1? This is the variant of the Hollander that mounts an LB-10X and 2 medium lasers. You don't see this mech very often, but I think it's quite excellent in a way. It has pretty, solid armor, not 100% armor, but enough armor that it's going to take a large pulse laser to the leg. And it's just got a really nice arsenal. That LB-10X is extremely useful for crit seeking, things like that. If you fire solid shot from the cannon, it does enough damage to cause a piloting skill roll. I think this mech has a lot of the same advantages that the Wolfhound does. Now, it does carry ammunition, and the ammunition is actually in the center torso, but I think it being in the center torso is not a huge problem, because this is a light mech. If you're taking internal hits on the center torso, then you're going to die real soon anyway. So if one of those goes to the ammunition, well, at least the pilot gets to eject. Now, in this case, there is one problem with that, though, which is that the left torso is empty. And so left torso critical hits are going to go into the center torso. So there is a bit of increased vulnerability. Really, the problem is that the left torso is empty. But with that said, I think this mech will serve you pretty well if you bring it to the battlefield, especially in a particular situation that I think is really interesting. If you take this mech in vacuum into combat, it is going to destroy the enemy in droves, because that LB-10X is one of the best weapons to use in vacuum. Now, there's one 3025 mech that I think is still easily in the first tier of light mechs in 3050, which is the Jenner 7F. 4 medium lasers, extremely fast, excellent jump capability, although not maximum jump capability for its speed. But this mech will never serve you bad. It's an excellent piece of hardware. The only problem is that the head will explode to a 10 damage hit. That is a significant negative, but on the other hand, it's otherwise a 35-tonner with full armor, which is my number one criterion. And it also has a standard engine. So by the metric of how resilient is it, yes, it's got that problem with the head, but on the plus side, it has a standard engine, which brings it up in the zombie category. Now, what about if you're willing to take the risk of piloting something that has an extra light engine? Well, in that case, I think one of the best options is the Talon. It's very fast at 8 and 12, and it brings excellent weapons to the table. It has an ERPPC, which I think is one of the strongest weapons for the inner sphere in the 3050s period. Especially if you're fighting the clans, you want to bring a lot of these. And if you're not fighting the clans, you do too, because it's a good way to outrange other inner sphere forces. Also got 2 medium lasers on the left arm. It just brings a lot of punch to the table, a lot of speed. You can really dictate range with that fast speed. And the Holy Grail, it's 35 tons, it has maximum armor. Or if you want to fight more close in, the real Cadillac of light mechs in this period is the Spectre. It's got a Phoenix Hawk's arsenal, basically, a level 1 Phoenix Hawk's arsenal. And it jumps 7, which is just incredible. There is nothing like jumping 7 in BattleTech. Highly advantageous movement profile. Yes, it does have an XL engine, but again, it's got maximum armor, 119 points. That's the holy grail for a 35-ton light mech. The Spectre will not do you wrong. Of course, you may wonder, if I'm taking a Spectre, why don't I upgrade to a Wraith? If you're balancing for C-bills, a Wraith is much more expensive, but it does carry those pulse lasers, which are really advantageous if you're jumping to counteract your attack or movement modifier. So while the Spectre is, I think, maybe the best light mech in this period, it may still be dominated by a medium counterpart. But this just gets to one of the realities of the 3050s. It used to be that in the 3020s, there were advantages that light mechs had that no other chassis could have, right? There were speeds that they could achieve that were impossible for heavier mechs. With the dawn of the extra light engine, that's no longer true, and the other tonnage saving technologies of the 3050s. And so in the 3050s, it starts to become the case that for any light mech, almost any light mech, there's a medium mech where if you could afford that medium mech, you would be doing better than you would with the light mech. So my attitude is, for any purpose except bringing an initiative sync to the table, if you can afford a fast medium mech, it's almost always better to have the fast medium mech than to have the light mech during the 3050s period. And if you are looking for initiative syncs, my philosophy is always, do combined arms and bring some infantry or armored vehicles to the table. Those are much more affordable by any of the metrics, and it just makes much more sense that commanders would use those as a sort of cannon fodder than valuable battle mechs.
You know, on the whole, I belong to the school of thought that says that the limiting factor for most units would be space and dropships, and so I just don't think battle mechs are a really useful unit to use for something like reconnaissance, for example. I think you just want helicopters for that, and maybe land air mechs, but they're just not optimized for that. What you want a light mech for, if you're using it, is for combat activities that require speed and mobility, and for those purposes I think the mechs that I've talked about here are the ideal ones to use.